Riot has done something that is very difficult to do with character-based games, especially in shooters, and that is to make almost every single character, or at least, basically all of them, close to meta or just viable in general. Now, of course, that is something incredibly difficult to do, especially if we look at things like Overwatch. I can definitely say with confidence that not every single character there is even close to viable. Some of them are just basically just useless compared to other characters. However, in my opinion, Riot have done a very good job of making almost all of their characters, and I say, almost all, very viable and, of course, some meta. Now, those characters that are not are, in my opinion, actually only two. Some people say it's three. Some people say that basically the biggest ones being Raze, Omen, and Jett. However, in my opinion, it's really only Raze and Jett, but that could be a video all on its own. So today we're only going to be talking about Jett, and is she underpowered? Is she bad? Should she be buffed? Should she be nerfed? We're going to get into all those things. So I think the first thing that we can do is actually sort of look at what type of character Jett is. And, the biggest difference between her and those other top tier characters is that she's a very solo styled character. She's not going to be the one sort of sticking with the team. She's going to be that sort of encouraged to push by herself, to entry, to even roam as well, to lurk. And so, that's sort of the first piece of the puzzle. We can see why some people think she's underpowered. Another thing that you compare with those top tier characters, Brimstone and Sage, is that she has very little area control when compared to them. I mean, if you get onto site with Sage, you got the bomb plan, and you still haven't used many of her abilities, you can basically just shut down that entire site. You can lock it down. Let's just use one site. Let's use a site on Haven. If you wall off CT and slow down Heaven, and then you can wall off CT, slow down Heaven, and slow down A short. You've got only one spot you got to worry about. That's simply something you can't do with Jett. And that isn't really sort of a bad thing. That isn't really her strength, and that's okay. However, there goes the problem that the strengths of other characters simply outweigh Jett's, and that can basically be summarized to Jett. Even though she's a good solo character, she's good at sort of pushing, she's good at entering, she is simply outclassed by all the other characters and all things that are good, basically all things that you want in a team. And so that's why you see people wanting Sage, wanting Brimstone, these sort of area control players on the team, because it helps the team as a whole rather than Jett being sort of that solo push style character. And, this sort of gets into one thing that I actually disagree with a lot of the community. I don't actually think that she's a bad character in a way. So the sentiment that, Jett is actually a bad character is something that I think a lot of the Valorant community holds right now. However, again, I really disagree with that. Basically, not only on what I've seen, but really, her as a character isn't necessarily a bad thing. The biggest difference is that she is simply not as good as Brimstone. She's not as good as Sage. She's not as good as Sova. And in a lot of ways, in my opinion, she's not actually as good as Omen, in my opinion. Some people put Omen at the bottom. But, regardless of what you think she's good as she's better than who, whatever. It really doesn't matter. All that matters right here is actually, and then probably the most interesting part about Jett is sort of the players, the community, how the community views Jett. Because if you can see right now, the most picked or the best possible ways to pick are probably going to be Brimstone, Sage, of course. It's probably going to be Breach. It's going to be probably Sova. It's probably going to be Cypher. Those 5 characters are probably the best chance that you're going to get a win. And so, if we look at those characters, what do they provide? Sova provides information along with Cypher. Cypher can basically hold down an entire area on his own. Breach is sort of a very good entry fragger and is very good at defending sites. He can do kind of best of both worlds. Sage is insane at everything. She can hold sites, she can take sites, and Brimstone's a very good general character to have. You can smoke stuff, he can molly stuff out, he can help you, with your aim, with his sim beacons. And so basically, we have these 5 characters that are very team focused, actually, and I thought that was actually a very interesting community reaction. They don't want Jett on their team, basically because she doesn't contribute to the team. And I've seen some Reddit posts of people saying, they don't want Jett mains in a sense, It's very interesting to see that because, the Jett mains are probably going to be the players that want to get the kills. They want to get the frags. And it's very interesting to see that the community doesn't want that. They want them to stick with the team. They want to play as a team. I think that's a very interesting sort of community reaction. You can't really say you don't really expect it because, that was the same thing in CS. You don't like players that just push and try to get kills. That may be effective, in the short term, but, in the long term, it's much better to just push with your team and play as a team. And so it's very interesting to see that, a lot of people really don't like that in Jett. And so, again, going back to the sort of initial question, is Jett underpowered? I think it is that's a very good way to put it. Jett is incredibly underpowered, not because she is a bad character, but because she is outclassed by all the other characters. And so now let's actually sort of get into the very difficult topic of seeing if she were to get buffed, how would you do it? All right, so let's just say for a moment that Jett is going to be buffed. Now, that is the biggest question right now, how would you actually do it? That is, we can actually look at what makes her bad, I guess. What makes her outclassed. We talked about it again, it's the sort of the way she doesn't have area control. I think maybe one step would be maybe increasing the amount of time her smokes last. That is probably a very simple way to do it. That could be sort of give her a little bit more area control, not as long as Brimstone, but maybe just a little bit longer, just to give her a little bit more area control. Maybe they'll pick her a little bit more. But at that point, it's sort of, the question is whether Riot would want to buff her. I think, the thing with the smokes that I just said is basically the only thing that they would probably do. Because they probably like her as a character. They don't want every character to be just this area control player, that sort of rewards you for sticking as a team. They probably like that there are these characters that maybe they have a lower pick rate, but will eventually, will sort of allow the player to play the way they want to. Not every player wants to, be the IGL. Not every player wants to be the one that's supporting the team. Some players just want to frag out, and some people want to push. And you can say, well, that's what Phoenix is for. But some people just simply don't like Phoenix. And, I think Riot may not buff Jett simply because they like that she's that style of character. They don't really care that some people dislike her simply because, she's not as good as other characters. So just to conclude, I wanted to say, in my opinion, Jett is definitely underpowered, not because she's a bad character, but really because, she is not as good as the other characters. I think that is sort of the biggest part of this, that Jett may not be the worst character in the game, sort of by utility and all that. However, she's just simply going to be outclassed by all the other characters. Now, regarding if she would ever get buffed, I personally don't think that she would ever get buffed. Maybe a small thing with her smokes, like I said, maybe some increase in her height or something like that with how high she can get with her Q, I believe it is. But, I don't think Riot would actually want to buff her simply because they like the variety in characters. They don't want every character to be this sort of very tactical style with Brimstone and Sage. So, that sort of concludes it, basically. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button if you really appreciate it. I really appreciate it, and if you really want to watch more of my content, please hit the subscribe and the little notification bell so you can see when I release my videos. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.